Welcome to Beyond the Broadsheet, a podcast by the Lincoln County News. We are a community newspaper based in Midcoast, Maine, and we provide the most comprehensive, in-depth coverage available anywhere of the 18 towns and one plantation that make up Lincoln County. My name is Piper Pavelich, and I'm a reporter here at the Lincoln County News.
And my name's Molly Rains. I'm also a reporter here. I have a small dog in my lap who might snore, but I'm going to stay awake.
And next to me, we have our fearless editor-in-chief, Maia Zewert.
Hello, mostly just here to fact check and check out the very small, in stature only, dog.
Yes. And a little bit later, we will hear from somebody who used to be a reporter at the Lincoln County News. But first, we're going to hear some of the top stories from our Thursday, March 20th edition of the newspaper. So, Piper, do you want to take that away?
Yeah, so the first one we're going to talk about, none of us actually wrote because it was Mr. Jonathan Riley. Mm-hmm. But as we all know, he has moved on from the paper. But recently, it sounds like the Great Salt Bay School principal is not getting a contract renewal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was an executive session at their Wednesday, March 12th meeting of the GSB School Committee, and a 9-0 vote not to renew GSB Principal Kim Schaaf's contract for next year.
Yeah, she worked at the school for a little over 30 years, started as an ed tech in the 90s, went on to be a teacher, assistant principal, and then principal. And she was the fourth principal in the school's history.
Because it was founded in 1980.
Yeah.
Yep. She said in an email to Jonathan, "I am deeply saddened by the school board's decision and am still processing the news. Serving as the principal of Great Salt Bay School has been a lifetime gift for which I will always be grateful."
Yeah. I actually just met her the other day. She seems like a very nice woman, so it's... I'm sure she'll find something
Yep.
better to do.
Superintendent
Yeah.
Lindsay said that they're going to try and have a nomination for the position by the end of the school year.
Awesome. So we'll come back at you when that comes around.
Yeah. So we also got some things going on in Edgecombe, Piper. There's well, you can describe this. You've been following it along.
If any of us recall, there was a body discovered in the Schmid Preserve back in early December, and Maine State Police arrested Luke Crott, 26 years old, of Edgecombe, for the murder of William Nate Robinson, 34, of Austinville, Virginia. And Luke Crott appeared in Androscoggin County Superior Court Friday, March 14th. To enter a plea for the charge, and he pled not guilty. He will be back in court again in June, so it'll be a little while before we hear anything else about it. But that is the update on that one I've got for everybody.
Thank you. And then on Saturday, Piper, you were at a town meeting.
Yep, Saturday, March 15th, I was over in Nobleboro with all those awesome people to talk about their $2.9 million municipal budget, and their meeting was just about an hour long.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how many people were there?
I believe it was 116, if I can recall
then
correctly.
Maybe that's why they rejected the article proposing they use electronic clickers for voting at future town meetings.
It was very funny because one resident stood up and essentially waved his card stock that, voters raise this piece of paper to signify their vote. And he went, "Are these broken?"
I am so glad you included that quote in the article. That was delightful.
Because otherwise the electronic clickers would have ended up costing them about $5,000 in next year's budget. And so they were all just like, I think this works.
They're $2,906,523.
That $5,000 is probably like, what, 0.8%?
Oh, probably. But they were...
if it ain't broke.
They were essentially like, we're trying to save money. Like, we don't need that.
I want to bring up something from that article because we talked a little bit about it on Wednesday morning, Piper, because I believe it was the treasurer who is quoted in the beginning of the article.
Yes.
And then later on, you introduced her as like speaking as a resident. And I was like, Piper, how did she differentiate? And Piper disclosed the best thing ever.
Okay. So Robin, if you're listening, I'm sorry for outing you this way. But Robin Clark, Nobleboro's treasurer and also a resident of the town, spoke as both the treasurer and a resident at the meeting. So anytime she got up, she put on a literal baseball cap that said either resident or treasurer on it, depending on who she was speaking as. And it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And I loved that she did that.
I think it's important to say.
It was great because I was like, great, she's speaking as a resident right now. She's speaking as a treasurer right now. This is so easy for me.
Yes. Yes.
But yes, I did take a picture of her in one of those hats and I sent it to Maia, but it ultimately didn't run with the article. So I couldn't really find a place for it, but it was a fun little memory that I'll now have of that.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, that was Nobleboro. And this time around, they didn't talk about the education budget, which they usually do at their March town meeting. But they have tentatively scheduled a special town meeting in May to cover the education budget because they're waiting for an audit to be completed so they can get a clearer picture of what revenues they have and such. So
yes, everybody's waiting for an audit. We talked about that in the last episode too.
So Nobleboro, we'll talk about the school soon, just not yet.
Yes.
Can I also point out this was the second year in a row, and well, I think it's been going on for much longer than that, but since we switched beats, Whitefield and Nobleboro constantly fall on the same day.
Yes.
And both of those towns are towns that Piper covers. And so when she's at Nobleboro, Jonathan Riley went to Whitefield both years. And you were texting me on Saturday to tell me you had gotten out of Nobleboro's within the hour.
I know.
And I was like, have we heard from Jonathan?
He was still in it.
He was still in it.
They asked a lot of good budget questions over there, it sounds like.
Excellent.
And they approved a $1.8 million budget, which was a slight decrease from what they had proposed, if I'm recalling correctly, what he had told me. But yeah, they just had a lot of questions about how the budget process worked this time around, and this is what they did. So
I respect it.
But
also poor Jonathan.
Yeah. I think he said he was there for 3 hours.
Yikes.
Good for him.
So I told him I would repay the favor somehow.
Well, his last day was Wednesday, so I don't know how you're doing that. But
I don't know.
Maybe you can attend a lecture for him and just give him the notes.
Yeah, do a homework assignment for him.
But now you have one more town meeting to round out this edition.
Yeah, because before he left, he went to Bristol, Mr. Riley.
Mr. Riley.
And they had a 50-article warrant, and they approved their $3,759,000 municipal budget, which was also a decrease.
Yeah.
Yep, $72,981 decrease, 1.94%. But the amount funded by taxation is going to rise by about 14% this year.
Yeah. Sounds like a big topic of conversation was a new generator for the school.
Which is ongoing. Yeah.
Yes. I spoke to Peter Nielsen on Wednesday just because I wanted to, now that Jonathan departed, I wanted to make sure I understood it going forward in case I end up at one of these meetings or if we send our part-time reporter to one of these meetings.
What did he say?
He said it is ongoing. So to boil it way down, at the 2024 annual town meeting, the voters approved an article that would allow the Bristol School Committee to transfer up to 15% of the budget in between lines. Usually it's only 5%. So this was a lot more.
Yeah.
And then at their meeting a couple weeks ago, the Bristol School Committee realized they could essentially transfer funds to purchase a generator. The total of those funds was $400,000. So it was like, oh, we can transfer that amount into the facilities budget and make this purchase.
Okay.
Then the Bristol Budget Committee heard about this and they were kind of upset about it because it's like, this doesn't seem very transparent Like, even though that permission was granted, we thought that would be like for emergencies. You're using this to make a like rather large purchase.
Okay.
So the budget committee then voted down recommending one of the articles in a symbolic gesture, as one of the members said. So when they got to annual town meeting, Darren Carlucci made the motion. He's the school board chair, but in this instance, he was speaking as a resident, one assumes, to
No hat.
no hat,
No hats.
no hat. So essentially to amend the education budget to reduce it by $400,000 because
Wow.
they had that from last year's budget and everything was approved. And it sounds like it will be something that continues. The school committee is still looking to buy a new generator, and there is in fact a request for proposals in this week's paper from them.
Okay.
So essentially, it just seems like what everybody was looking for was a bit more transparency, and it sounds like they'll have that moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
That was like 6 weeks of meetings boiled way down. I'm sure I glossed over a few details, but
Well, there's the gist for you.
yeah.
Molly, will you tell us about a Lincoln County Commissioners meeting you went to? Because I hear that there's a
Yes.
grant we might be considering.
Yes. Well, yeah. So this week I went to the commissioners meeting on Tuesday, March 15th. But the week before, I also went to the meeting of the Multi-County Jail Authority, which oversees Two Bridges Regional Jail in Wiscasset. And there's people there from Saginaw and Lincoln County. And it was at that meeting that I first heard our county administrator, Carrie Kipfer, talk about this grant that she has written a proposal for. It's all very up in the air right now, but the grant that they're seeking is from the Maine Connectivity Authority, which is this like agency that oversees internet development in Maine. And they want to reach a lot of people across the state with internet, like literal internet connections and devices and opportunities and education and stuff. And they've identified some populations of people that they want to reach the most. And one of those is incarcerated people. And Carrie was saying, in Lincoln County, we haven't really had any initiatives yet to reach incarcerated people with our internet. Like, we have broadband being put up all around the county, but that group in particular, she was saying that there's probably some room for development there. So she submitted a proposal for a grant with the blessing of the county commissioners and the jail authority that could in total reach $750,000. Who knows how much they'll actually get. And the idea is that starting at Two Bridges in Wiscasset, they'll use the money to provide like devices, educational programming, IT support to the people who are being held in the jail. And those range from these little things called pocket talks that are like kind of like cell phone shaped, and you keep them in your pocket and they translate in real time, which Colonel James Bailey, who's the administrator at Two Bridges, was saying would be really useful because they get people. Two Bridges has an arrangement with Border Patrol and with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So they get some people who are coming from outside of the country who may not speak English. They also get people coming from inside the country who may not speak English. And they want those people to be able to understand their rights and what's happening to them.
Yeah.
So they'll use Pocket Talks to communicate with them. They already have a couple, and he said they use them all the time. So that's cool.
That is cool, yeah.
And then they're also looking to get a bunch of tablets and some file share software so that people can access the files about their case from inside the jail, which is a right that people who are being held have. But as it is currently, they have to get them like paper copies through the mail or get a thumb drive with all of them on it. And then I don't know, they probably have a couple computers for public use. So some of the questions I heard at the jail authority meeting were about cybersecurity. And Carrie was saying that they'd use some of the funds to beef up their IT support so that they could configure any devices to make sure that they're only used for their intended purposes. But overall, everybody was enthusiastic about this because it sounds like in terms of catching up the county with technology and internet the jail is a little bit behind everyone else. And then the exciting part about this is that Carrie has organized with and included in her proposal all the other county jails in the state, which there are 15.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, 14, sorry, because we have a 2-county jail.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And they will all eventually be part of this project.
That's very cool.
If it gets funded.
I hope it does.
It's a proposal. And I think the important thing to keep in mind is that these are federal funds administered to the state, which are then administered to the jails. So the future of federal funding of many sorts is profoundly uncertain right now. So who knows? But I think it's still important to talk about because it's really good to know that these decisions and conversations are happening.
Yeah.
And like the jail board is thinking about improvements at Two Bridges, and I'm really excited to keep hearing about those because Two Bridges is kind of in a time of change, it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really hopeful for that.
Me too. And then I also want to talk about our character of the county this week because he
comes from your neck of the
my
woods.
area, Mike Dostie, the Somerville fire chief. He's been the chief for 35 years since 1980. Well, he joined the department in 1983, and I learned a lot of things I didn't know about him through this article, which includes the fact that he's been a foster parent to more than 50 children with his wife, Margaret Dostie.
That's incredible.
Can you even imagine that?
And
No.
they also have 3 children.
Yes,
So it's
Wow, that's
raised
amazing.
3 plus. Yeah.
So kind, and so he's just, he's one. I mean, I knew he was a great guy because he comes to the Somerville Select Board meetings and shares important information. Like, he was the first person I heard raise the alarm about some federal mandates that were proposed last year that could have affected local fire departments, and then Piper, you ended up writing about that, but he was the first person.
He was the first
And
person.
he also retired last year from a teaching position at Spurwink
He taught at Spurwink?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
for 35 years.
I just heard about Spurwink in a budget presentation from RC 12.
Yeah.
So that's funny.
Spurwink serves kids who need some extra attention.
Yeah.
And he taught them a lot of practical skills that he learned from working on his own house.
That's very cool.
Yeah, really cool guy. And he said he loves living in Somerville and he loves the people there, which I agree with.
Can I just point out, like, if you're hearing huffing and puffing,
It's Hedgehog.
that is Hedgehog.
She just wants to be part of the conversation.
Like, if we need to take a break, we can before we bring Elizabeth on.
Yes, a break for dog to go outside.
Oh my gosh. All right, some other stuff from the paper this week. Also at Great Salt Bay Community School, the school committee rescinded their gender identity language from Title IX policy to comply with an executive order issued by President Trump. So that happened at their March 12th meeting.
Yes, which is a conversation happening in Maine,
Yep.
the whole state. So
Yeah.
kind of unsurprising, but also when you see these decisions being made at the local level, it's very interesting.
Yeah. And then Newcastle will be discussing ordinance amendments and a town meeting format change. They're going to be considering amendments to zoning codes and the recall of elected officials. I think that's on March 24th. Is that correct?
Sounds correct. Yes, Monday the 24th.
March 24th.
And after that special town meeting, there will be a public hearing about the format change because they haven't decided either way, going from the open town meeting
to
format.
referendum. Yeah. So
Yes.
if you feel strongly about open town meeting versus referendum, please attend.
I know someone in Nobleboro who feels strongly about paper versus electronic voting. So, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if people
Seriously,
have opinions.
get out there and voice your opinions. And in sports, I'm not super well versed in sports, Maya.
Oh, I got this. You want me to do some quick hits?
Why not?
All right. So South Bristol School is doing, well, not South Bristol School, but at South Bristol School, the community has started some free indoor pickleball sessions for South Bristol residents. That's Saturdays from 10 a.m. to noon. It's free, it's family friendly, and as Mick points out, it's for all ages. So
Love that.
that's pretty cool. We also got a lowdown on the KVAC honors. So that's the Kennebec Valley Athletic Conference. Locally, we have both the Class B Girls Basketball Player of the Year and the Class B Boys Basketball Player of the Year, both from Madomic Valley, Katana Williamson and Gabe Lash, respectively.
Surprise, surprise.
I know.
We've talked about them a lot on the podcast. They're absolute beasts on the court.
I mean, Katana only, set the school's all-time scoring record for the girls program this year.
Like, she only reached her 1,000-point scoring milestone. Like, what?
Nah. We also had the Class B Girls Basketball Coach of the Year with Lindsay Vinyl. This is her second season as the head coach. She's been in the Madomic program, within the basketball program for a decade, though. So pretty exciting. The girls team also won its first, conference championship since 1985. So we're pretty psyched.
Cool. I said in one of the last couple of podcast episodes, what is in the water over at Madomic?
Yeah,
they've got a lot of great people over there in their athletic department.
I just want to double check that while I'm thinking about it, because I know there was, it's also the first time in a long time since the girls and boys program both won the regional, or not regional title, the conference title.
Really?
Yeah. But we'll check that out real quick. But while I'm looking for that, let's take a break. And then when we come back, we'll have Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Yahoo. And we're back with Maia, me, and Piper, who's next to me. And Piper, we have a special guest.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, who is it? I don't know.
Oh, it's been so long since we've seen her.
You know what? I think that's Elizabeth Walztoni.
What?
So
great work, Piper.
Thank you. I used my eyesight to figure it out.
You're only sitting 5 feet apart. It's fine.
Yeah.
Those are the investigative skills.
Yeah.
So we figured, one of the things we wanted to use this podcast for was to talk about the paper itself beyond just what runs in it every week. And that means talking to the people who make, and in this case, helped to make, because we have to use past tense because she's no longer with us. But Elizabeth is a former reporter for the LCN. She was with us for about 2 years, almost. It was right up against it, right?
It was a year and a half, but we crammed a lot in.
In reporter years, that's 2 years.
Yeah. Reporter years, I'm retired.
Yes. And so she left us in March of last year, 2024. And she is now working for the Bangor Daily News. But she's back for a social visit, and we were like, hey, you know what would be fun? We're going to make her do the podcast with us.
Because I left shortly before this. So I've never gotten to do it, actually.
Mm-hmm. And now you look like a natural. It's almost like you've talked on mic before.
What?
I know. So to get started, I guess, Elizabeth, can you tell us, we both know you're not originally from Maine. So can you tell us what brought you to Maine and then how that got you to the Lincoln County News?
Sure. I'll give you the shorter version, or I'll try to, which is that some of my family is from Maine. I grew up moving around a lot, and as long as I can remember, I felt like I needed to get back here as soon as I could. Which is, sometimes I feel strange when I say that to people, but it is true. I just had this feeling that that's where I need to go. And after college, I had a couple false starts, and I moved here for a job that then fell through once I was already here. I had to go back. It was a circuitous thing, but summer 2022, I was finally here. I was working on a farm that summer, and then I was trying to find winter work. And I was thankful to have a job, but I was in a syrup factory in in the area. It was very small, and I was thinking, I really don't like working with the syrup machines. And I need
and I need to find something else to do. And in college, I had worked for our campus newspaper, but I hadn't really ever been able to picture myself doing that as a career. But I read the Lincoln County News every week, and over time started to think, wow, I really like this paper. I really see and feel like I was starting to understand how they do things, and I could picture myself maybe being here. And I really want a new job. So I actually just cold called you because I don't remember any openings being advertised. So to our listeners, just call. You never know.
This is true.
Yeah, then I got an interview, and I think within about 2 weeks I was working here.
Yes, I remember I got your email, and then I forwarded it to John Roberts, the publisher, and was like, hey, I want to bring this person in. I've read over her clips. I think this will be good. And you came in and interviewed with me and John and Sherwood Olin, our associate editor, which is, you know, an intimidating trio.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
at least
you were all on one side of the table.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. Like
Sherwood was growling a little bit.
more of an intimidating duo with the Midwestern girl in the middle, like, so. But I remember you left, and I turned to John after I heard the door shut, and I was like, so we're offering her the job, like, as a statement, not a question. And then, I did reach out to a couple of your references because just like, you know, in the interest of checking and making sure. And they had nothing but glowing things to say about you, to the surprise of no one, having known you for so long now. And we brought you on, and
Thanks, Maia.
and you hit the ground at a dead sprint, and I don't think you stopped once.
I'm not remembering stopping.
Yeah, I don't
Now that I think about it.
Somewhere Elizabeth is still running.
Yeah. Her legs are over there.
But like during your time at the Lincoln County News, I mean, I know we hired you and you started with the Waldoboro, Somerville, Jefferson, over that area desk, but you did some moving. So let's talk about your time at the paper. What did you all do while you were here?
Yeah, that's gonna take me a second to reconstruct this timeline.
I think it would take less time to be like, what didn't you do?
That is actually accurate.
Well, while I'm thinking about that, there's another thing about my interview here. I remember driving home from work at my other job after we had scheduled our interview, and I had this feeling like my life was about to change in a really significant way.
Nice.
I was going over the Bath Bridge, I remember, and like the sun was just at this certain angle in my car, and I was like, everything's about to change. And it did.
Main character moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know. I was like, am I making this up right now?
Just a building soundtrack coming up.
Exactly. Like some Simon and Garfunkel.
Yes.
So I wanted to share that because you were also talking about our interview, and I remember that very vividly, and then it's true. So when I started, I was covering, Jefferson, Somerville, and Walterboro, and I believe that a few months after that, somebody left, so then I shifted over
To the Twin
I
Villages.
can't remember. Was that what I did? Was there anything in between there?
I think, well, the other thing that happened was like when that person left, we had to kind of like stopgap fill. And
Yeah,
so
that's right.
You were covering, like, you were still covering Waldoboro, Somerville, Jefferson. I want to say we had you go to Noblesboro for a bit, if not Bremen.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. I also started with Bremen.
Yes.
It's amazing to me that I can't remember all this in order now.
I mean, it was only like, what, 2022? Psh,
Well, I guess it was a lot changing.
2023?
Maybe. So yeah, okay, it's coming back to me. So
Yes.
I also had Bremen when I started. And then I was doing Noblesboro for a bit. And then I was doing the Twin Villages, Bristol and South Bristol.
Yes.
And then I believe that was until Jonathan got here. And there was a
Yep.
time where I was our only full-time reporter.
There was a time where you were our only full-time reporter. That was a stressful time for all of us.
It was. I feel like it really forged my character.
It did.
How long was that for?
It was like, let's see, Jonathan, we had 2 people come on real close together, but like, I would say Elizabeth held it down either by herself or as we were training someone for like a month. And it was awesome.
I would say it was at least a month. And we were coming up on budget season.
Yes. And Sherwood was pitching in.
Pepper your face.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We do trial by fire. It's fine. And so it was 2022. I was like, why am I misremembering this? Because you were I'm getting ahead of the story. But so yeah, you did all of that, hung on, and then
Oh, and then Jonathan had Bristol and South Bristol, so then I pivoted to Twin Villages on an Edgecombe.
yes.
And then sometimes I went to Wiscasset. I think I did a commissioner's meeting. And then here in the building, I also helped with layout and copy editing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a
That's a lot.
workable summary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there was when I take vacation as editor, Sherwood essentially becomes the editor of the week, but this means the editor of the week doesn't have an associate editor to like help out, and you kind of unofficially but like officially filled that role, which was awesome. Yeah. And then like in October of 2023, yes, we had not one but 2 new reporters join us.
Made our family complete.
Yes.
Stop it. Sorry. I wonder who those people were.
Yeah, it might be like they're Molly Raines and Piper Pavelich.
Weird.
Yeah. And at that point we had 4 full-time reporters. It was a full staff, and like I want to say I said this to both of you, if not all of you, a couple different times, but like how nice it was to be able to hear laughter from the reporter's room. Like this job can really, like the face Piper was making when Elizabeth said budget season was like,
In that moment, I wish this wasn't an audio medium.
there are some challenges to this job. And so like being able to get along with your coworkers as well as you did was awesome. So I was wondering what it was like for you guys to work together.
Oh, now I have to dig into the recesses of my brain. Well, I was a newbie in all senses of the word. This is my first job out of college, and I was the last one hired of the 4 of us. So I was a little nervous. But getting in there, everybody was just so encouraging and just like amazing people that I was perfectly fine sitting anywhere from a foot to 5 feet away from.
I'm laughing because I think Jonathan and I were more like 6 inches.
I know.
Yes. If both of you backed up at once, it was like you guys were playing chicken. Like
Yeah.
someone would win
Yeah.
and someone else's chair would just disintegrate.
Yeah, like our office is set up in such a way that if in the off chance we don't get along, it probably wouldn't be very great. But the chance that we do get along really well, it's so fun because it's just like coming into work, but also hanging out with your best friends all day, every day. And being able to turn around and be like, hey, what do you think of this headline? Hey, do I write out this number?
If it's at the beginning of the sentence, the answer is always, isn't that right, Piper?
Yes, and it's really embarrassing that I just learned that this week.
Piper.
I know.
I failed you.
I don't think I ever had that come up before.
You just always wrote around
everything else.
I'll try not to let that hang over the rest of this podcast.
Embarrassment.
No, it was me. No. Well, I'm just kidding. But I agree with you, and I think Piper, you and I were actually talking about this last night that the 4 of us clicked so well that I think we all kind of knew it was a really rare thing.
Oh yeah.
And not something that any of us would have expected to have happen or expect to have happen again, because it is a lot of time together in sometimes a high pressure situation in one room. And so it's like really important to just function well together, but then to actually be really close and click so well and be able to support each other and have a lot of fun just makes such a huge difference. And that was kind of something interesting for me, having been here longer and having great coworkers in the past too, but then all of a sudden having this like group that gels together in a really special way too.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Like,
Cut that part out.
It's so true though. And actually in having the four of you together from like essentially October 2023 through March 2024, that has kind of changed how we've approached the hiring process a little bit because of, some people work great from home. Some people prefer office work for focus, easier to focus, less distractions, any of it. Neither is right nor wrong. It just depends on the individual. And so knowing that one individual could like make or break that room's culture, what we've started doing is having like candidate interviews with me and John, and then we have them set up time to talk to the reporters. And then I ask the reporters what their thoughts are, if they vibe with the person, if they have any questions, comments, concerns, that sort of stuff. So we're trying to recapture the magic, but I don't think, it's like lightning in a bottle.
I know. I've been asked a few times like how that came to be so well, like how we got, and I don't have an answer.
No.
I just showed up.
I think from the outside, having not been in that room, I think you are all, it's not like you're all the same person. You are all very different from one another in ways that complement each other. Mm-hmm. And so I think that might have something to do with it, but...
Yeah. And, it's just crossing my mind. I'm not sure if our listeners would know this, but the reporter's room, it's called the reporter's room, and it's just a square room where the four of us all sit, and that's like where we are. So when we're saying we're together all the time, it is like...
the time.
We're right there. So yeah, it is important. But I also think... there's sorry.
Publisher John Roberts is printing something in the background. That's all that is.
Jerk. Yeah. Thinks he owns the place.
He is smiling, I'm pretty sure. I think he knows that was a good, funny joke.
Oh, yeah, come on.
Well, I was thinking, too, one other thing that helps is I feel like the paper itself is already a special place that has a community focus that's really unique, and that can attract people who value that. And I think that helped with all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So during your time here, what were some of your highlights? I know I'm asking you, like, you've written literally hundreds of articles, a good amount of which took place here and have taken place other places. So it's like,
yeah. No, that's a great question. It is interesting. I almost never am the person being interviewed.
I know.
I'm like, wait, this is kind of hard. There are so many highlights. I feel like almost every day I would think, this is amazing that I, get to do this and get to meet so many people, go so many places, and understand how things work. And also, like, I think we've joked about this before, like having a license to be curious. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying this to buy myself time while I think of a concrete answer. But it's true. That's surprisingly difficult. I'll just say one that crossed my mind recently. Valentine's Day 2023, I think, I went out on a Colby and Gale delivery.
Yes.
Where they did like free fill-ups for Valentine's Day for randomly selected people. And I really liked that. I mean, it was great surprising people and seeing other, parts of Bristol, I think mostly is where we were. But it was also really neat to just be on the job with somebody and see like what their life is like, and then see someone else's office. So that was one that crossed my mind because it was recent. But yeah, I've had a lot of highlights, and a lot of them have also been in this building. I think I mentioned earlier that I moved around a lot growing up. And so it's been really special to, I mean, although I did end up moving again, hopefully for the last time, not that far away. So I'm not like fully gone, but I guess it was just a highlight being part of the community at the office and learning about the community here that has a lot of people who are dedicated to it, and like growing relationships with you guys and watching Amber's baby grow up.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You know, I don't think I really answered your question, but those are some of my highlights.
Those are good highlights.
I'm going to say something, and I'm wondering if it's going to trigger something.
Oh, great.
The guy with the beans.
The bean
The
guy.
bean guy.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Piper.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I don't know why, but when she asked highlights, that is the only thing that came to my head. I was like, maybe the bean guy.
Thank you
Because
so
I
much.
remember that being a thing.
You were right. It's the bean guy. Thank you.
That was an amazing article.
Okay, don't worry, listeners. I'll reconstruct this for you. So this is one of the stories I'm most proud of, even just like getting it. I think, you know, especially here, a lot of stories are you go to a meeting, you hear something, you figure out what's going on. This one took months. So
Literal months.
yeah, calling disconnected numbers. So I was at the Windsor Fair, and I was in the exhibition hall where the kids will make little displays of their vegetables. And there was one table that had all these little cups of dry beans. And there was a label on it that said the Sam Birch Bean Collection, Jefferson. And Jefferson was, I think it was in my beat at the time. Or in any case, it was in Lincoln County, which the Windsor Fair is not. So I took a photo of it, but there was no contact information. I thought, well, I'll just Google it when I get home. I couldn't find any trace of it or even the name. So then I called the fair administrator and I said, please tell me, who is Sam Birch Bean Collection? And she said, I think, you know, I can't give you that information, but I'll take your number. She can call you. And so I waited and like months passed. And then I think that I started asking around other people I knew here who collected. So I think maybe Neil Lash helped me.
I have to assume Neil Lash was somehow involved in
I think he might have been the person who ultimately got me her number. But I'm probably doing more blow by blow than anybody needs. But so it was a lot of like what felt like detective work. It took months. I finally got a number for Rosie Guest in Jefferson, and I called her and we talked a little bit, and she agreed to have me out to the farm, which I was so glad. So Sam Birch was a friend of hers who lived in Whitefield, and he collected many, many, many different types of beans. I think he had more than 300.
I'm going to see if I can find this
close to
article
300.
really quick.
Great. If there's any juicy quotes in there, you can and he was a friend of hers, and he, I believe, got sick at some point. So she helped him, because the thing with saving seeds is that they will only be viable for a year or two, and then the chances decline pretty steeply after that. So you have to keep growing them, keep saving them to keep them alive. And then eventually she inherited his collection. And I found out later that she also sends them to local school garden programs, even over in Belfast, and they sell them. So that was a really amazing story. I loved hearing about somebody locally who was really dedicated to one particular thing and kind of saved it and kept it alive. But something else I liked about it was I learned that there is a small community of bean collectors. I'm trying to remember. There was a website. It was called like Bean World or something like that. That was like a photograph of all these like it was a very old website.
Yes.
You would click through and there were these photos of all these different beans.
I think I remember you looking at this website one day when I was walking through the office, and it's just like a screen of beans. And I just took a moment. I was like, how we doing, Elizabeth?
Yeah. I spent a lot of time on that website, actually. And Molly has taken pictures of me that I have of me just like squinting at the screen, clicking through the beans.
A bean collector's window.
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah. A window into beans.
A window into beans. And oh boy, was it.
You know, I had no idea of this whole backstory of how this story happened. So this is great. I'm glad I mentioned it.
I'm really glad you mentioned it.
I just remember the excitement around the bean story.
I remember the day you came into my office, like eyes aglow, and you were like, we interviewed him. We interviewed him in like 2001. I have the interview. And I was
that's
like,
right.
oh, we are deep in the beans.
Deep in the beans.
But I have it up on my computer right now just to like remind myself how much I loved it. And it just made me so happy.
Yeah, it made me happy too. I think the process of finding out who to talk to for that story was fun, and like it was a really interesting specific thing, but like on a bigger picture level, it was also the kind of story that I really liked about living in this area, you know, with people who are really dedicated to things and help each other with their projects and kind of keep history going alive that way too.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. If you haven't read this story and you would like to, it is available on our website, and the headline is Community Seed Saving Keeps Whitefield Man's Bean Collection Growing.
I remember being proud of that headline.
As you should be. As you should be. Well, like, you know, we have to talk about her eventually leaving, and it makes me sad. But you did depart. We don't have you with us, but you're doing some pretty amazing things up at BDN, and we have a content sharing agreement with them.
We do. You often appear in our paper.
I never went anywhere. I'm still here.
Pretty much.
Because, you know, there are relevant statewide stories that you're doing. And it's like, our readers would want to know this. And it was very funny. Like, I think it was two or 3 weeks after you started there, I picked up one of your stories, and Paula Roberts was doing layout, and she saw your name, and she's like, is she still writing for us? And I was like, no, but we get to keep her byline.
Yeah, I could never really leave.
No, I mean, we ran into you at the Maine Press Association Award, or Maine Press Association conference back in October up in Bar Harbor. And I remember when you walked into the room, I was on the other side, and we ran at each other and hugged.
It was like a rom-com moment.
It was so good. But like, I mean, the Maine journalist community is small but thriving, and we'll never actually let you go as a journalist or as a friend. So
yeah, we basically all go to the Maine Press Association conference to hang out with our friends.
Yes.
Who also write stuff.
It's also been helpful, I think, the amount of time I needed to spend really focused on all the tiny details of how things work when I was here really helped me start to do the job that I have now, because I understand as well, hopefully, I hope that I understand like kind of how the gears turn and like what's underneath what's happening. And so I'm really thankful for that.
I was going to say, do you have any advice for a future LCN reporter?
Ooh, I think you need to learn to care about everything.
Yeah.
Which most people, I think, you know, do if they want to do a job like this. But sometimes people would say to me, you know, oh, you have to go to another night meeting, huh? And by people, I mean people who don't work here.
Right.
As, you know, like, oh, that's awful. But I really learned a lot from it. And I think if you approach writing about everything like it's as important to you as it is to the person it's about, A, you'll write a better story, but B, I feel that you'll also relate to them in a way that will like help you learn what you need to get at what's really going on. And also, if you don't care or if you think some parts of it aren't important, you miss putting the whole picture together. sometimes that's easier to say than to do, you know? Like when you're on like the 60th hour of your work week.
Yeah. And I come to you and I'm like, hey, this little minute detail. And you're like, I hate you.
Well, I didn't say that.
No, your eyes might.
Piper and I were actually talking about that this morning, where I'm still trained to like think I like look for every tiny detail, like whose son owns that company that got the lawn mowing bid last year, but then they did an extension for 6 months. But I guess when I say care, I also mean just like try to make it important to you, or find a way to make it important, because then actually doing the work that it takes won't be something. Doing the work will be valuable to you too, and more sustainable long term. But that's my lofty version of.
I like it. Oh, this has been fun. Can we
I could talk to you guys for another couple hours.
Easily. Although at that point, like, I am working so hard to keep my like swear filter on.
Oh my gosh.
Like, if we really start telling stories, it
right
could
now.
be like, oh my gosh. But we can also continue this off mic and go get some lunch. Maybe go visit some people.
I mean, places to go, people to see.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have my car here, so I'm just gonna go wherever you take me.
Love it.
I can't wait.
Well, thank you for being here with us, even though you're about to be with us a little bit more. But we appreciated having you on the podcast.
Yeah, I really appreciate the invitation, and it's great to be back, and it's great to be with you all, and I appreciate everybody listening too. Yeah. I love it here, and I miss it, and I'm thankful for all the time we had.
We might need a Piper. I'm sure we could probably find a reason to call Elizabeth and have her like speak on the podcast if we ever.
Yes.
Yeah. If we ever have
Like
to
you're calling an expert.
Yeah. If we ever have to go back and reference one of her articles, I say we just get her on the phone and like record that.
I do this all the time. It was funny when you mentioned the Colby and Gale thing, because I had said earlier today to Elizabeth, like, no matter how long you're here or what you write, your work does live on, because specifically the Colby and Gale thing, I referenced your article for their Fuel the Love event again
really?
This year.
That's amazing.
I was like, what is that? And your article is the first thing that came up. Yes. Perfect. So perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Broadsheet, a podcast by the Lincoln County News. Production support is provided by Tyler Davis of Tyality Productions. Theme music by Stu Mahan and Sherwood Olin.
Have a question or a suggestion? Email us at info@lcnme.com. And if you haven't already, please be sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen.
This has been a Lincoln County Publishing Company production.